Two things. One, just wanted to wish our football program luck down the stretch here. They've had such an exciting and remarkable season, and just watch the emergence of Khalil Tate and the energy that he's brought to our community, to this university, and really, you look at him in the world of college football. You know, he reminds me of a long time ago when I was a young kid watching Tony Dorsett play for Pitt and run wild. It's like every time that he got the ball, it seemed like he was going to run for a touchdown. And you know, here we are in the year 2017 watching a similar thing. So I wish him the very best. Rich and his staff have done a great job. I know they got 2 road games here, and really pulling for them to finish strong, and I'm sure they will. I talked about our recruiting, that I was going to be able to say a few things. I'm just going to wait one more day, and after tomorrow night's game, I'll address any questions you may have about recruiting that I'm able to answer. I'd like to do it now, but timing will be better, and I'll be able to, I think, say more tomorrow after our game. In terms of this week for us, obviously we have Bakersfield tomorrow, and we're excited to play a game. You know, for a college basketball player, the start is very unique. It's almost like a long, very long, grueling training camp, because, you know, we practiced our 30th time yesterday, and you add 10 more that we had this summer prior to leaving for Spain. You know, you're practicing 35 times, and you're playing 2 games. So, like anything, practices are longer and harder at the beginning. Players get tired of competing against each other. And eventually, I think you have to play someone else to figure out what really are the things you're good at. Are you right in assessing your team? And, you know, through game experience, you start to improve as opposed to just practice. You need both. So from this point, I think we'll hit a stride where we practice maybe, let's say, 70 times, and we'll play about 35 games. So you look at that, it's a much different flow from this point forward than it has been from the start until now. And I really commend our team. They've done a great job of trying to embrace the practice setting every day and work to get better. It's not easy when you have that many straight practices in a row and without the game action. So just the fact we're playing tomorrow, I know our guys are excited, and we don't have to give them a pep talk, because Bakersfield pushed us to the brink a year ago, could have beat us in McHale. They were in the NIT Final Four. I know they returned quite a few of their players, and I'm sure they'll come in here with a lot of confidence and play really hard. Rod Barnes does a great job coaching his team and running his program.
So when you're doing your lineup with your guys, obviously, do you kind of have a feel for what you want to do now, who to fit in and where to put them, or do you have a set time frame to want to get this all together?
No, we're very much a work in progress. You know, first of all, we're playing without Raleigh Alkins, who's a big part of what we do, and so if you look at some of the other things, you know, Dylan Smith that was the first time we've had him out there. You know, Brandon Randolph, and I want to talk about that because, again, you know, I haven't lost any confidence in Brandon. Brandon's off to a great start. He has surpassed, I think, our expectations on where he would be young in his career as a freshman. But when you miss 8 or 9 practices, and by the way, you're hit with a concussion so that you're not able to do anything at all and you're recovering, it takes some time to work back in. Yesterday was his first real practice in about almost 2 full weeks. So I hope he can progress, but it's things like that that don't really allow us to settle in on a rotation yet. And it's going to be some time, maybe even mid-December, before we have a true feel of how it's going to play out.
For someone like him and maybe some others, do you give them more time to get acclimated, or just kind of play it by ear and go with what you feel?
We try to make sure we paint the correct picture on their role, but that can change very easily. You know? And performance has a lot to do with it as well, not just how they compete and how they're improving every day in practice, you know, their collective attitude, you know, how they're able to listen and learn and carry that into practices and games. You know, Alex Barcelo is a great example. I think we envisioned him initially kind of being the backup to Parker, and a very good one, but man, I watch him every day, and I'm watching him on defense. We trust his ability to make shots. He's really improved in all areas that we've asked him to improve on over the last month. And he's been one of the pleasant surprises. Not that I didn't believe in him. I knew he was going to be a terrific player. But he's really impacted our games that he's played in, and I don't see that changing. He just does too many things well for him not to be a part of our rotation and a big part of what we do.
So based on what you saw in Brandon yesterday, I know you haven't practiced yet today, but do you expect it to be kind of limited tomorrow too?
I know we'll work him back into it. We just basically got his feet wet in the last game. I would think that he would have kind of the next step from there. And hopefully he has another good day today in practice. Yesterday he practiced well, was able to get through from start to finish. I think all of the symptoms that he experienced are clearly behind him now. And he looked like himself. You know, a couple guys that I've dealt with in basketball that have had concussions, you know, visually you can see that they almost appear to be different. You know, they're just not quite locked in, or you know, they're not as engaged as maybe they usually are. Brandon was back yesterday and did a good job in practice. So I think we'll give him a little bit more.
You guys have had back-to-back 100-point games. School record for 100-point games is 8 in a season. You guys are a quarter of the way there through 2. How does this offensive attack, in your opinion, stack up versus some of the other teams? And do you think Lorenzo Romar has a large part to do with the offensive resurgence you guys have had this year so far?
Yeah, you know, I mean, we want to score. We want to push the ball on makes and misses. You know, we have personnel. I mean, we have different players who can score, pass. We have a senior point guard who's 100% committed to making his entire team better in Parker. And not a lot of teams have that type of experience and mentality at the point guard position. You know, really ditto with Alex. Alex has come in and he had 6 assists and no turnovers in the last game. So you start to do the assist-turnover ratio at that position. You know, they're the throttle, they're the engine that makes things go. And when you have somebody who's playing excellent basketball at the point guard position offensively, and the way they play, they pass it, I think a lot of guys feed off of that, and that's been a big part of our success. You know, of course, you know, Lorenzo, he helps us in all aspects. He's not our tempo coach, you know, he's not our offensive coach. He's a really, really good coach and a great person. So, of course, he's impacted really a lot of things, and hopefully we'll continue to get that impact as we move forward. But, you know, as much as I think we're all excited about maybe our team's efficiency or maybe what we can become on offense, you know, I'm equally concerned about our defense. Our defense hasn't been very good, and it's really not one thing. You always look at playing DeAndre and Dusan together because sometimes that can be a challenge against these smaller teams, and at times every coach has to adjust. But that really isn't our issue. Our issue is really from a team perspective, effort, concentration, our guards across the board, keeping their man in front, doing what they're supposed to do. And, you know, at times, especially against Northern Arizona, our bigs, you know, doing what they're supposed to do, especially on these on-ball screens. But we have a lot of issues on defense, and my hope is that playing 5 freshmen, brand new season here early in November, that we can make significant progress each week, each day, every game we play. This tomorrow will be a big test because we worked on it, we've talked about it, and then I think what eventually you come to is you're no longer going to play because you're not willing to play defense the way we need to play, or you're going to play less. On the contrary, you're going to play more. You're going to now start because you're doing the things that we need you to do defensively as a team. You know, basketball is a two-way sport. You know, you have to play defense and offense. And I don't want to get caught up in the world of just trying to outscore people because I think we all know how that works. You win some, you lose some. We have to be good on both ends. And I think our commitment to doing that needs to improve.
Tournament in Nassau next week possibly being a good opportunity for you to improve on the defensive side, going against Villanova, going against some of those really top-tier teams. Do you think that'll really help, I guess, the team nail both sides of the ball?
Those tournaments are good for every college basketball team. First of all, anytime you challenge yourself to play on a neutral court setting, 3 games in 3 days, when you leave that tournament, good or bad, you're going to have a lot more information. But most important for us, we're not there yet. And in college basketball, every game counts. Sometimes it might not appear that way, but when you drop a game in a non-conference setting, there's always a real price to be paid when you're trying to make the NCAA tournament and do the things that we aspire to do. So, it's all about right now going from the last game, Maryland-Baltimore County, having 2 really good practices, and then getting ready to play against a team, Bakersfield, that pushed us to the limit a year ago in here. And I think they can be in the NCAA tournament. They're a dangerous team, and it's about us, I think, showing improvement first and foremost in that setting, and then when that game ends, we'll move on.
It's kind of unusual you invite somebody back for a guarantee game 2 years in a row. How did that work out? Did you probably figure yourself out?
Rod Barnes, he doesn't get enough credit for the job that he's done there. When you're Madison Square Garden playing in the Final Four of the NIT postseason tournament, you've had an excellent season, especially coming from the conference that they're from. That's a great testament to all the hard work, and he's got a talented group. The thing that really stands out about Bakersfield is they play hard, and that's what I'm really anxious to see, because we have to be able to match their intensity and their will. They at times can beat you up. They can out-scrap you. They can run faster, play harder, make those effort plays that a lot of times make you cringe as a coach. And that's what they hang their hat on. They're a blue-collar team. They try to outwork you on offense. They run their stuff. They're disciplined. But on defense, they try to take the game to you. And they have a lot of team quickness. So we're going to have to adjust to that, take care of the ball, and use our advantages. And like I said, match what they bring to the table, because a year ago we had a lead and they just kept chipping away at it, put themselves in a position to win the game. And those on our team this year that played in that game or watched that game clearly understand what I mean when I talk about how ferocious they are with their style of play. So it'll be I think the stiffest test so far when it comes to how hard the game's going to be played, because they're a hard-working, hard-playing team.
You said this team watched it? Or
Anyone that was a part of last year's experience would know.
I was wondering if, it was like, I think they had a 17-0 run in the second. I didn't know if you looked at it just recently to refresh your memory, or is that something,
No, we watched it. We watched it closely, and there's always parallels you can make between a year ago and this year, because a lot of coaches, teams do similar things. And like I said, the other part about them is they returned some of their best players from last year, and with it.
When you look back on that, I was just curious. I know you have a totally different team in a lot of ways, and they do too. But was there any particular things you got out of that one during that run, particularly where you said, "Well, we broke down here," or this or that happened?
They really drove us. They dribbled the ball by our team, which that's been a problem to this point. And not just our big guys, really all positions of being able to get in a defensive stance, keep your own man in front of you, do it as a team, obviously, but dribble penetration leads to bad things. NAU is a great example. They shot 30 free throws against our defense. A year ago in the Pac-12, a very, very good Pac-12, during those 18 games, I think teams shot on average 15 free throw attempts per game. So, sometimes the more aggressive you are, you think you foul more. It's really the opposite. When you're out of position, you're late to getting to where you're supposed to be. You're worried about getting beat. You're lackadaisical. Sometimes your effort level isn't what it needs to be. That always leads to more fouls, not less, that you commit. And the NAU game, they did a really good job of driving the ball on us. I don't want to take away from them, but we also contributed to that. And then in the second game, we gave up 14 made threes. It's so hard to win a game when you've given up 14 made threes. And I thought the threes they made, a couple in the first half might have been tough, but for the most part, they got good looks. So they shot 29 threes, and they made 14. A lot of their threes came off of dribble penetration again. So Those are real problems, and those are problems that we need to. We're not going to go from like kindergarten to high school right away, but if we're in first or second grade on defense, what I hope is we can be in fourth or fifth grade in the next game, and they just keep progressing so that as we improve in the month of November, a lot of it is about our defense is more about what it should be.
Pardon the dumb question, but Alex has been compared to a few people already, and I haven't seen you a couple times when you were in college. Do you see some of him in you, or you in him, because of his kind of grittiness? He won't take a whole lot of shots, very calculated, yada yada.
It's hard to compare. He reminds me of TJ a lot. TJ is much more exuberant with his emotions. You could see his face, you could see his fire, and that's something from Alex's perspective, learning how to talk more, how to get those other four guys engaged more with him on defense and on offense. That will come in time. That he has to be himself. His personality isn't the same, but his competitive spirit, his hardworking nature, his willingness to basically do what you ask of him and not really care about himself, but just try to make his teammates better. We've challenged him a lot on offense. We've challenged him because we've asked him to learn two positions, and he's been one of our team's constants so far. He's been there every practice and every game, and he's played really two positions in every game. So we can have him and Parker in the game together. And that helps because as you get through this season of foul trouble and injuries, and we've already experienced it, it's nice when you have some of your younger players who can do that. And, Alex has a bright future. I can't say enough about him because it's not what he talks about. It's not what you say about him. It's his actions. It's what he does every day, how he's played in the game so far. I think that if you just watch him closely, you see that he's a very good player.
So that's a yes.
I don't know if he reminds me of me. I don't really know who I am as a player or was as a player at this point.
How do you think the pace of the offense has affected the defense so far?
You can play, up tempo, and you can play fast. We've actually played at a pretty fast clip a couple seasons, more so than others, and that doesn't mean that our defense has to be porous or trade baskets or break down because we're trying to get it out of the net. That's not going to work. Points per possession, if there's more possessions, it's just a matter of do they miss or make their shots. Even though there's more possessions, that doesn't mean that our defense is less. So that's really not an excuse. And if we have a team that has depth, the more possessions should favor us most of the time. So as we aspire to do that, that doesn't mean that anything should really change defensively. And if you're a good defensive team, there's going to be a number of times where that team's going to have a hard time getting a good early shot. They're going to have to be more patient. You're going to see them trying to get a good shot in the last 10 seconds. And if you think about our first couple of games, that hasn't happened a whole lot where, last 10 seconds of the clock and they're working just to get a shot off. That hasn't happened because of us. So hopefully we have more of those types of possessions waiting on us tomorrow.
You talk about the rotation a little bit too. I was wondering, like with Keanu and Ira, they've shown some of the same things even though they're different physically, but I don't know what, at this point anyway, how would you differentiate when you put them in or what makes them different?
We like both of those guys. One of the reasons they both play really hard. They give us a lot of energy. They're very different types of players than Dusan and DeAndre. Size, the way they move. The big difference is Ira's very young, Keanu's older. But Ira gets better every day. He works at it very similar to Alex Barcelo in that he works on his craft. He's eager to please. He's eager to learn. Shows up every day. Has been involved in every practice and every game. And he made a couple plays in our last game that helped us win. His big plays in the last game came at big moments. His dunk, where he caught the pass from DeAndre. Keanu obviously had a block shot near the end of the game, but really, I'm learning to just trust Ira. And part of what we're talking to him a lot about is, the best is yet to come with him. What he can do now, I think 6 weeks from now, it'll grow. Sometimes you may barely notice it, but he's just adding more and more. He's so much more comfortable shooting right now, that 17-footer, than he ever was. And I think you'll see him being more comfortable putting the ball on the floor. Eventually his range will move out. He'll get more confidence. But defensively, he has a chance to be great. And that's what I'm excited about. We can do a lot of different things with him in the game. And Keanu works hard at it, plays hard, and I think it's a luxury to have both of those guys.
You're stacked at that spot, like the small forward spot. I mean, this school's probably been more successful at that spot than any spot, even point guards. And then you have, what, 3-4 guys at that spot. Could you talk about that? Your depth and able to change a lot of different looks.
Yeah, we have depth there. It's going to settle in, though. There's going to be a winner. There's going to be, I don't want to say a loser. The loser's just simply going to have to wait their turn. And not everybody gets to play equal minutes. Our rotation, like all college teams, will eventually shorten once things are proved and we have a lot more practices and games under our belt. And, you know, injuries and those types of things, you hope we can stay healthy. And those guys can really work their way back, like someone like Brandon. But, you know, I'll use Emmanuel as an example. Emmanuel has done some great things. And I don't know if there's anyone in our program that I believe in more than him. He has got an incredibly bright future. He can play 2 or 3 different positions. But I've been surprised at how hard he's played. He's shown he's played really, really hard. And then he's backed off and been maybe a little bit more tentative. Sometimes that happens with freshmen early in the year. They have to figure out what we mean when we talk about playing hard all the time. But we need him to give great effort on the offensive glass. Defensively, you know, we had talked about him in terms of being a defensive stopper. That hasn't been proven yet, and I think that will have a lot to do with, you know, his minutes. He's starting right now, and he could keep that position. Like I said, he does a lot of great things, but taking care of the basketball, playing hard all the time, you know, getting more rebounds from him and being more consistent defensively, those are the things that will keep him in that role, because, you know, that role can shrink significantly and be given to others that have proven that they're playing hard. Again, effort. The thing that you just got to keep your eye on is it's not the scheme a lot of times, it's the effort and the commitment. And once you get through a couple of these weeks and games, if that effort and that commitment aren't answered, then we're going to make changes, because you have to play with total effort on both sides of the ball. And I think some of the role players or guys off the bench, you know, look, I'd rather trade some of the points we're scoring for more consistent of not allowing them to get as many points or good shots. 14 made threes against Maryland, Baltimore County, 30 free throw attempts against NAU. Neither stat is very good for our future. So we're looking for guys to switch up and, you know, come in and blitz the quarterback. We don't need the wide receiver who's looking for the touchdowns right now. We have to balance this thing out, both as a team, and some of it's going to start with individuals saying, if I want to play more or keep playing, I'm going to have to change what I'm doing on defense.
That said, do you feel like with this team you have a little more of a cushion because you're so good offensively? That, okay, well, maybe we'll be only the 25th or 30th best efficiency this year.
Well,
is there any room to...
I think that's one thing we talked to our team about. You know, each of the last 2 years, I wouldn't say our team would be known as a great defensive unit, but I would say that we would be considered a good defensive team. We were top 30. And 2 years ago, you know, that got us a destructive loss against Wichita State, where they beat us up, threw us out of the way, blew us out, kicked us out of the tournament. They were the bigger, stronger, tougher, more physical team. That wasn't even close. We learned from that experience. And, you know, a year ago, a big part of our loss in the tournament to Xavier stemmed from our inability to get key stops at key moments, to keep a great offensive player who is red hot, Trayvon Bluiett, from having a career half, a career game. And, what happened in that game, your defensive stopper picked up 2 early fouls, so others had to pick up for him. Well, we couldn't do it. And I know fans always focus on the last shot or, how we attacked the zone. I'm sure we could have done better. But if we were a more consistent, tougher defensive team, we could have found a way to win that game in advance. So I'll use those 2 as examples because when you get in that neutral court setting in March, you're going against good teams, really good players, coaches that have been there before, and a lot of familiarity between each other. So, that trying to outscore the other team isn't going to work because you're going to have that moment where you're not going to be able to do that.
Just to follow up on the question I asked earlier about Bakersfield, did you know after you played them right away last year, is this a team you'd like to have back, or did it, was it a thing where you need to fill a hole in the schedule?
No, it worked out. RPI, strength of schedule, we're well aware of what types of games we want to play. And I think if you look at Bakersfield's history, where they would have ended last season, who they were returning, we're playing them because we think we're giving ourselves a quality opponent, a chance to win a home game against a team that will be playing for an NCAA tournament berth. So we're challenging our team in a home setting. So that's why we're playing them. No favor. As a matter of fact, it's not a comfortable game to play because, like I said, a lot of respect for Rod Barnes, a lot of respect for their team, their returning players, and everybody here knows what they did to us a year ago.
Sean, what's your thought on the Champions Classic last night, and is that maybe an event you'd like to participate in the future or even here?
I don't really have any thoughts. We've never been invited.
Well, I was wondering just in general about the Atlanta's tournament. I don't know if you wanted to address it after tomorrow's game because I know you're not there yet, or just in general, kind of what you're looking to get out of that. Since I'm guessing.
Yeah, no, I'll probably talk about that after tomorrow night's game. But I mentioned it earlier. When you challenge yourselves in these exempt tournaments, and we've played in quite a few. I mean, if you look at our history, we've played in Maui twice. We've been in Las Vegas a year ago, lost to a very good Butler team. I thought that game made us better. Coming out of that game, although you always want to win, we learned a lot about our team, and we grew from that experience. We've been in New York City, preseason NIT. So we know that the Bahamas is one of the great tournaments. The Battle of Atlantis, one of the great tournaments that you can play in. I've watched it from my perspective. Have never been there, obviously, but we're looking forward to it.
By the way, did you ever, I know DeAndre was in San Diego and Phoenix. Did you ever go to Bahamas for anything to recruit him? Or?
No.